Hello everyone, welcome to today's reading. I know what you're thinking. John, you're looking very tropical today. Well, it is true, there's one of two possibilities. Either I'm running out of shirts you haven't seen me in before, which is very close to being true, or, and this is actually the truth for today, that today's chapter is set in Hawaii and involves a green sea turtle, and so I thought I would dress for the part today. Interestingly, the chapter that we are about to read is one of the most popular chapters in this particular book, The Y Cafe, or as it's known most places around the world, the cafe on the edge of the world. And I know that simply because as an author, when you're doing book signings and events, people will often tell you, this was my favorite part of a book. And so this chapter, this concept of the sea turtle, is very often that conversation that I have with readers. Before we jump in, our cover for today is Hungarian. They also use the amazing artwork of Ruth Lieb. We talked about that a couple days ago. But their book is significantly bigger. So they went with a larger format book, which is kind of cool too. So love that. All right, today's chapter is a bit longer, and so we're going to jump right in. All right. Relax, put yourself in a nice environment, and let's get started with Chapter 10. Casey's question had my mind racing. Does doing what most people are doing help me fulfill my purpose for existing? Before I could answer, she spoke again. Have you ever seen a green sea turtle, John? A sea turtle? Correct, Casey said. A sea turtle. In particular, a big green sea turtle, with green splotches on its flippers and head. I suppose I've seen pictures of one, I said. Why? As strange as it may sound, Casey began, I learned one of my most important life lessons about choosing what things to do each day from a big green sea turtle. What did he tell you? I asked, not at all successful in suppressing my smile. Funny, she answered and smiled back. He didn't specifically tell me anything, but he taught me a great deal just the same. I was snorkeling off the coast of Hawaii. The day had already been spectacular, and that I had seen a purple spotted eel and an octopus, both of which were new for me. There were also thousands and thousands of fish, representing every color you can imagine, from the most striking neon blue to the deepest shades of red. I was about 100 feet away from the beach and diving down among some large rock structures when I turned to my right and saw a large green sea turtle. He was swimming right next to me. That was the first time I'd ever seen one in the wild, so I was ecstatic. I rose to the surface, cleared my snorkel, and floated on top of the water so I could watch him. He was right underneath me when I looked down, and he was swimming away from the shore. I decided I would stay on the surface and just watch him for a while. To my surprise, although he appeared to be moving pretty slowly, sometimes paddling his flippers and other times just floating in the water, I couldn't keep up with him. I was wearing fins, which gave me propulsion power through the water, and I didn't have on a buoyancy vest or anything that would slow me down. And yet, he kept moving farther from me, even though I was trying to keep up. After about 10 minutes, he lost me. Tired, disappointed, and a little embarrassed that I couldn't keep up with the turtle, I turned back toward the beach and snorkeled to shore. The next day, I returned to the same spot with the hope of seeing more turtles. Sure enough, about 30 minutes after walking into the water, I turned to look at a school of tiny black and yellow fish, and there was another green sea turtle. I watched him for a while as he paddled around the coral. Then I tried to follow him as he swam away from the shore. Once again, I was surprised to find I couldn't keep up. When I realized he was pulling ahead of me, I stopped paddling and just floated and watched him. It was at that moment when he taught me the important life lesson. Casey stopped speaking. Casey, you can't just end the story there. What did he teach you? She smiled at me. I thought you were a non-believer in green sea turtles being able to tell you something. I smiled back. I'm still doubtful on the tell part, but from the way the story's going, I'm starting to become a believer in the teaching possibilities. What happened next? Well, as I was floating on the surface, I realized that the turtle linked its movements to the movements of the water. When a wave was going toward the shore and in the face of the turtle, he would float and paddle, just enough to hold his position. When the pull of the wave was back out to the ocean, he would paddle faster, so that he was using the movement of the water to his advantage. The turtle never fought the waves, but instead he used them. The reason I hadn't been able to keep up with him, because I was paddling all the time. No matter which way the water was flowing, I was paddling. At first this was fine, and I was able to stay with him. I even had to slow my paddling sometimes. But the more I battled against the incoming waves, the more tired I became. This meant that when the wave was going out, I didn't have enough energy to take advantage of it. As wave after wave came in and went out, I became more and more fatigued and less effective. The turtle, he kept optimizing his movements with the movements of the water. That's why he was able to swim faster than I could. Casey, I began, I think I appreciate a good turtle story. Green sea turtle story, she interrupted me and smiled. Right, green sea turtle story. I think I appreciate a good green sea turtle story as much as the next person. Probably more, actually, since I love the ocean. I'm not sure I understand how this relates to the way people choose the things that will fill up their days, though. And I had such high hopes for you, she said and smiled again. Okay, I replied. Give me a minute. I thought through what we had been talking about before the green sea turtle story. Then I began speaking again. You were saying that once someone knows why they're here, they know their PFE, then they can spend their time doing things that fulfill it. You were also saying that people who don't know their PFE also spend their time on lots of things. That's when I deduced that the things they spend their time on are things that don't help them fulfill their PFE. So far, so reflective, and I think I can sense a major insight just around the corner, she said. Yes, you can, I replied and smiled at her entertaining sarcasm. I think the turtle, the green sea turtle, taught you that if you aren't in tune with what you want to do, you can waste your energy on lots of things. Then when opportunities come up to do what you want, you might not have the strength or time to spend on them. Very nice, she said, and I appreciate the catch on the green sea turtle instead of just turtle. She became more serious. It was a really big moment for me. Definitely one of my aha moments in life. Each day, there are so many people trying to persuade you to spend your time and energy on them. Think about your mail. If you were to participate in every activity, sale, and service offering you get notified of, you'd have no free time. And that's just the mail. Add on all the people who want to capture your attention for television time, online activities, places to eat, travel destinations. You can quickly find yourself doing what everyone else is doing, or wants you to do. When I got back to the beach after watching the turtle on the second day, I was filled with all these insights. I sat on my towel and wrote them down in my journal. I realized that in my life, the incoming waves are made up of all the people, activities, and things that are trying to capture my attention, energy, and time, but are not associated with my PFE. The outgoing waves are the people, activities, and things that can help me fulfill my PFE. Therefore, the more time and energy I waste on the incoming waves, the less time and energy I have for the outgoing ones. Once I had that picture in my head, it really put things in a different perspective. I became much more selective about how much paddling I did, and for what reasons. Interesting, I said, reflecting on her story and how I spent most of my time each day. I see what you mean by learning something from a green sea turtle. Casey got up from the table. I thought you might. However, I think I'm keeping you from eating your breakfast. Why don't I let you work on that for a while? I'll come back in a little bit to see how you're doing. Casey, can I borrow a piece of paper and your pen before you go? Sure. She took the pen out of her apron, ripped off a piece of paper from her order pad, and put both of them on the table. The answer will surprise you, she said with a wink as she walked away. How do you know? I started to ask, but she was already on her way back to the back of the cafe. I started writing figures on the paper. Average life expectancy of 75 years. 22 years old when I graduated college, 6 days per week that I received mail. Awake 16 hours per day, 20 minutes each day spent on mail and email. When I finished all my computing, I couldn't believe the answer. I did the math again. Same answer. I realized Casey wasn't kidding about the impact of the incoming wave. If from the time I graduated college until the time I was 75 years old, I spent 20 minutes per day opening and looking at mail and email I didn't really care about, that used up almost an entire year of my life. I rechecked my math a third time. It was true. There were probably 53 years of life after college, and if I wasn't careful, I would waste one of them reading junk mail. Well, it was Casey. She had returned from the kitchen, but I was so caught up in my math efforts I didn't notice her. You're right, I replied. I am surprised. Actually, I think I'm beyond surprised and quickly heading to shocked. Do you realize that junk mail alone could eat up an entire year of your life? She smiled. Not all email and mail is junk mail, John. No, I know, but at least for me, a lot of it is. Besides, it's not just those things. I was sitting here wondering what other incoming wave items are occupying my time and energy every day. It can get you thinking, she said. That's why my time with the green sea turtle made such a big impact on me. She smiled, then turned and walked toward the people at the other end of the cafe. Thank you very much for listening to today's reading. I hope that gives you something to think about. It certainly does me every time that I read it. Be well, be safe, be healthy, and I'll see you tomorrow.